The finale of Alien Earth is almost upon us, but most recently, the trailer for it was recently released. Following the most recent episode where it felt like it was all about us and Hermit seeing that Wendy had lost all humanity, and that the Marcy that he thought that he recognized within her was now dead, this next episode looks set to pit the hybrids up against the other species as an uprising now seems imminent. With Wendy spreading the awareness that Prodigy are evil, and with her also being able to communicate with the likes of the Xenomorph, death, devastation, and destruction looks like it's on the horizon at Neverland. And oh yeah, is that Boy Kavalier being trampled over by a Xenomorph? Well, let's dive into the trailer, break down the details, and I'll also give my theories and predictions on what could happen in the finale. Here is Alien Earth Episode 8 Trailer Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The trailer for the finale opened up with an aerial shot of Boy Kavalier's island, which he refers to as Neverland. The trailer opening up with this shot is indicative of the fact that most of the episode will most likely be set here, and at Neverland, all of the chaos that Boy Kavalier has brought to his doorstep is most likely gonna now unfold. It was said that the children that arrive on Neverland never leave, like in Peter Pan, so it also feels like it's going to be about the hybrids proving that point wrong and doing all that they can to get off of the island. The first line of dialogue was spoken by Morrow, and he looked like he was in a pretty messed up state. Whilst it seems like it's teasing the fact that the T Ocellus could well be put into him because one of his eyes was swollen, I think he's just been taking a beating from the likes of Kirsh's soldiers. They did knock him slightly when they took him away, so it could be the aftermath of that. Morrow said, "Feels good, doesn't it, being more than human?" Whilst it was followed by a shot of the hybrids, I don't actually think he was talking to all of them. I think he's either talking to Kirsh or he could be talking to Slightly through the communication process like he has been throughout the season. There was a shot later on down the line of Smee and Slightly walking through a bloody hallway, so I wonder if this is going to be them working with Morrow. Kirsh and Morrow have had this strange connection throughout the entirety of the show, and it's almost been like a rivalry on who's more superior. Morrow is a human and he's used cybernetic parts in order to enhance his body, so he's more than human. And with Kirsh being an intelligent being, and even though Kavalier looks down on him, Kirsh values himself higher than a human, so Morrow could well be trying to appease Kirsh and make him aware that he's onto what he's doing, in knowing that he's going for that top position. Or if Morrow is speaking with Slightly, he could be speaking with him again in order to try and get him to free himself. Hybrids technically are more than human because they have their consciousness inside a shell that elevates their abilities, so Morrow could be buttering up Slightly again in the hopes of getting him to get him out of the cell that he's been taken to. The next shot was of the hybrids looking like they were being contained in a kind of cell that they weren't able to just break through. Behind Wendy, Nibs was there, which showed that they took the time to repair her, and also Smee and Curly were too. Curly being there did surprise me as she's been as loyal as they come, and hasn't really taken the side of the hybrids at any point. She's just wanted to impress Boy Kavalier. But I think that will come back to get her later on in the finale. The next shot was of a dead Arthur that was washed up on the beach as the line, "We're food to them," was being spoken by Hermit, to which Wendy interrupted and said, "No, you're food to them." This is most likely her speaking about the Xenomorph, as Hermit was disappointed with the fact that she kept summoning it to kill, and he no longer recognized her. This line that Wendy said showed the clear divide that she felt between not only herself and her brother, but also herself and the human race, showing that she'd transformed her mindset of believing that she was human, because now she viewed humans as the enemy, and that was something that she simply didn't want to be, as they were the ones that were doing the terrible things. Another thing that supported the fact that this was about the Xenomorph was because, as it was said, we saw the one that she freed continuing to run through the forest, showing that it hadn't been caught yet. After this, we saw a video clip of Marcy before the procedure took place, where she asked the question, "We'll be okay, won't we?" And in the background, Dame Sylvia was standing there, completely still, looking like she could no longer watch it. She was the mother figure to the hybrids throughout the show, and it now very much feels like with them being captured, contained, and treated like prisoners, maybe even with the threat of shutting them down for a while because they've not been able to behave, I wonder if she's going to be feeling a sense of guilt to the young children that they once were, feeling like she's letting them down. She did end up smashing the tablet, so I reckon that's what's going through her head. The next shot was then of Boy Kavalier walking through what looked like some kind of greenhouse that had been set up inside of the facility. This to me is going to be all about the D Plumbicare. I reckon this is where the creature is going to get its time to shine, as there were no other creatures that would need an environment like that. Kavalier turned around at one point, and whilst it seemed like it could well be the D Plumbicare, I think it could be the Xenomorph, as later on in the trailer there was a shot of the Xenomorph inside that very room and wiping out the soldiers that were in front of it, and also there was a shot of Boy Kavalier looking like he'd been pushed to the ground by it. I wonder if Wendy tasked the Xenomorph to kill the soldiers but to leave Boy Kavalier because she'll want to deal with him herself. The fact that Kavalier looked up, it makes me think that Xenomorph's like emerging from the shadows in the corner of a room. So I think that's most likely what's happening here. After this, the pacing of the trailer increased as there was a piece of music in the background that felt like it was mimicking the sound of an alarm, which makes me think that many of these creatures are going to get on the loose in this episode. In one of the first shots, there was this creature that was moving around on the back wall, almost like a starfish. This could well be the D Plumbicare, as we've not seen that one in the facility at all yet, and it would also disprove what many of us thought in thinking that it didn't have the ability to move, when in actual fact it seems like it can blend into the shadows. Alongside this, in the quick succession of shots, there was one of Kirsh firing at somebody. One would have to assume that it could potentially be Morrow, or maybe even one of those fly creatures, as he'd understand the threat of what they'd have towards him. The final line of dialogue in the trailer came from Wendy, as she said, "All this time, we've been afraid of them, but I think they should be afraid of us." As this was said, Kavalier was sitting there looking at the video footage of Wendy inside of the cage and focusing on her. It seems like Wendy is going to try and get inside the hybrids' minds and make them realize that they're far more powerful than what the likes of the humans are, and that even though they're outnumbered, they shouldn't be fearful of that. Wendy is viewing herself and her species as superior, and that's where we could see an even deeper and darker complex emerge between herself and her brother, because they both currently have opposing viewpoints. I think we're going to see all of the hybrids listen and switch allegiance to Wendy, but Curly won't. They've teased us with Curly looking for Kavalier's approval from day dot, and I don't think Kavalier will care about her and could well make an example out of her, which would not only be sad to see, but it would also support the idea and message that humans are bad. When it comes to other things that didn't feature in the trailer, one of the largest things is the T Ocellus. Boy Kavalier had a revelation in the most recent episode where he wanted to put the eye inside of a human host so that it would be able to talk and communicate about its intentions. There are a couple of different suspects that it could be. The first is that it could well be Dame Sylvia. She's grown to be emotionally attached to the hybrids, and she could end up standing in the way of the likes of what Kavalier wants to do. So he might now view her as a weak link. Kavalier also didn't seem convinced at the fact that she knew nothing about what Arthur did with turning off the trackers. So he might have lost his trust in her and now view her as disposable. She's probably the easiest one for him to get away with utilizing. Morrow could also be an option. However, with his cybernetic abilities, if the T Ocellus got a human that was more than human, it could pose an extremely dangerous threat to Kavalier. Honestly, I know this season of the show has had some criticism, but I've been a huge fan of it. The standalone feature in episode 5 was incredible. The horror that's been embedded within it has been frightening, and the thought-provoking nature about what makes a human, and when do you lose your humanity is a subject that's always interesting to explore. Let's just hope they land the ending. So, there you have it. Alien Earth Episode 8 Trailer Explained. If you want to see episodes of Alien Earth being broken down, then check the playlist below. How do you think the season will end? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.